Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. So, my grandson is 3 years old, and for the last 3 years, I have been visiting him a lot. I adore him more than anything in this world, and because he's the only grandchild I have, I spoil him good. But for the last few months, my visits to him have not been as frequent as I'd like them to be, and that's not by my choice. I always make sure to call my daughter ahead of time when I am about to drop by, and she usually doesn't mind the help I provide with her son. With me being there, she gets to have some alone time and even enjoy dates with my son in law. But the past few months, whenever I called her, she always said something about how it's not a good time at the moment or how my grandson has a play date with another friend of his. At first, I was like, a few missed visits isn't a big deal. But as time went on, the gap between my visits kept increasing. When I brought up my concerns to my daughter, she said that I'm overthinking because I live alone and she's succeeded in gaslighting me into thinking I'm making a fuss out of nothing. But then a few weeks ago, when I called her to tell her that I don't want to hear excuses and I'm coming over, when she started to say how Eric wouldn't be home for a while, I told her it doesn't matter because I'm free all day and I'll wait for him at her house. I was determined to not let her stop me from seeing him again. So instead of making excuses, she switched to a direct approach. She said that I cannot see her child because I'm not a great influence in his growing years. I asked her what she meant by that. I happened to raise her, and she turned out okay, so what was the big deal? And to that, she replied how she doesn't want me there because she thinks I spoil him too much, and he needs to learn without his grandfather a little so he doesn't get attached to me too much. I was too shocked to answer her. I would have understood her concerns about getting too attached if I was a dog or something, but grandfathers are made to spoil grandchildren and play with them. I might as well go as far as to say that that's my human right as her dad. But when I insisted, she screamed at me that my grandson actually hates me and she was trying to spare my feelings by lying, but I just wouldn't listen. That shut me up real quick because my daughter has never been this aggressive in her life. And lying and then screaming at me for her trying to lie? That was pretty aggressive of her, so I decided to drop the subject for now. After hanging up, I tried to come up with a million different reasons for her behavior. I thought maybe she was going through something and snapped at me, or maybe Eric has been too tough to handle lately and this was a new way of parenting for her. Nonetheless, I decided to give her a little space for the time being and started calling my son in law weekly for updates on Eric. So imagine my surprise when, after a month of constantly telling me that Eric and my daughter both are fine, my son in law suddenly tells me that I need to do something if I want to save my bloodline. I asked him what happened and why he was telling me to save Eric when I didn't even see him, and he said that my daughter had gone mad. She had been acting very possessively for a couple of weeks. Initially, he thought it could be hormones or her motherly love, but her actions are fully in the psycho category, and I need to do something. Naturally, nothing he said made any sense, so I asked him for details, and he said that she used to follow Eric around everywhere since a few weeks back and would only let him go to preschool classes or to the playground. But then, suddenly, she stopped letting him go out to play and bought a couple of indoor games that would keep Eric happy without him needing to meet other people. When my son in law asked her why she was being so possessive, she said she's not being possessive, rather just precautionary. She said she had watched a missing kids profile case documentary on YouTube and just wants to make sure that her child is completely safe. So my son in law told her that those things don't usually happen and she doesn't have to worry so much as they live in a pretty safe neighborhood. But she just nodded and went back to playing with Eric. So my son in law was keeping an eye on her for a while just to see if she ever lets go of her deer or if she was still trying to dictate Eric's life. He noticed that there have been less and less visitors at their house, and she turns away any unexpected visitors. And when he found out that she took him out of preschool too, he was furious. They had a huge row, and he kept telling her how absurd she was sounding, but nothing made a dent in her armor. She kept fighting him on it, and when he tried to forcefully take his son away, she took the knife and tried to hurt him. So he doesn't know what else to do. That's why he was calling me. That made a lot of sense to me. Now I knew the real reason she asked me to stop visiting, and it horrified me. So I called her straight away and told her I'm going to visit, but she started shouting on the phone like a crazy person. In the end, I had no choice but to call the cops and ask them to help me out. I told them everything, and even that my son-in-law was the one who let me know about it. The cops took their time to completely analyze Eric's living situation. They were actually impressed how well he was kept, but they soon found out the truth when my daughter refused to let him out of her sight. My son-in-law told them how she had taken him out of preschool and wouldn't let him out of the house. She wouldn't even let him be alone with Eric. It was painful to see my grandson taken away from me, but it was the only way I saw to legally approach the situation without getting in trouble myself. And I also knew I had to do it because my son-in-law would never be able to call the cops by himself to take his own son away. Now, am I an a-hole for doing this? So it's been a week since I called the cops, and since then they have sent over a CPS worker that oversaw the case. Because my son-in-law couldn't fight his wife, they had to ask him to undergo the official process to check whether he was fit to parent the kid or not. And that's what's been happening for a week. And today, they told my son-in-law that he could keep Eric with him, but he had to separate from his wife because she was clearly unfit and unsafe to be left around the kid. And I personally agree with them. My daughter has never once shown any signs of being ill, but recently she has been acting very weird. She didn't come out of her room after the CPS worker took Eric away forcefully and threatened her husband on more than one occasion. Nobody who looked at her from afar would be able to say there's anything wrong with her, but people who talk to her regularly can tell how oddly she behaved. So I'm going to go over and try talking to her while Eric stays at my home with his father. We have decided to take our daughter to a mental health counselor and see if he could help in determining what's wrong with her sudden change in nature. So I know it's been a few months since I uploaded here, but the situation was so hard to adjust to that I couldn't really come online. After I took my daughter to a psych doctor, he told us that high levels of stress could sometimes cause this kind of behavior in adults. And that's what happened to my daughter. She worked as an editor for a crime newsletter and was under a lot of stress for meeting deadlines. Maybe that's what caused her hypertension and led her to a state where she focused only on her child and didn't let anything or anyone harm Eric. The doctor suggested that we sign her up for a retreat program one of the government organizations runs to help out people like her, and that she sees a therapist until she is cleared to be mentally fit. My son-in-law took care of all the technical details, and I didn't ask him much about the place. I couldn't bring myself to go there myself after I failed to recognize how my daughter needed help when she was dealing with something, and I kept fighting her for not letting me talk to Eric. Now, 5 months later, she's finally better and will be coming home in 2 weeks. This time, I'll make sure to be there for her. My daughter finally came home after she was fully cleared to go back to her old job and even parent Eric by the state. I thought she'd be angry at me for calling the cops that one time, but when she saw me, she just hugged me. I was so relieved to see her relaxed and happy. When she saw Eric, she started crying, and it took her a while to get herself together. We talked a lot. One of the big things that she was going to change in her life was to quit her job. She said that constantly editing and managing a newsletter that documented only crimes around the globe really gave her depression, and she needed to find something that would make her a little happier and would be less stressful to manage. I'm really happy about her decision and told her that she could always ask me for help whenever she needs it. I hope that this is my last update here and that I never have to seek an online community because something bad has happened in my life. NTA, but the story was so confusing to me. How can the husband miss the signs of aggression in his wife? He should have called the cops the first time she tried to intimidate him, or should have taken Eric away at night or something. NTA, you did what you did, and it will only help your daughter. The kid needs to socialize and be a part of a society to grow up mentally healthy, and the mother is clearly an overpossessive freak. I, 30s female, share a flat with two other people, flatmates, one of whom is someone I consider a friend, 30s female. We keep our bathroom windows open 24/7 all year round to keep it dry, reduce mold. Recently, my friend asked me a couple of times to leave the bathroom door open as well. It's been winter the last few months, only just moved to spring. Temps often around to 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So I said I prefer to not do that as it makes the rest of the house cold. A few weeks ago, she messaged me in the morning after I had used the bathroom to get ready. TMI, but relevant. All I do in the morning is pee, brush teeth, and apply makeup. I already have deodorant on, as I shower at night. Telling me to leave the bathroom door open after using it, as the smell was so bad, that morning that she had to turn on the fan, leave the door open, and exit the bathroom because she couldn't stand it. She also said she had noticed a bad smell coming from my bedroom the last few months when my door opens. I was completely taken aback. I have perfectly normal hygiene habits, shower nightly, wear deodorant, frequently wash clothing and bedding, etc. I contacted family and friends I had recently stayed with, all confirmed no bad smell. My sister came to the house and confirmed my room did not smell bad, nor did the bathroom after I used it. A couple of close workmates also said I had no smell. My other flatmate also said there's no smell from my room. When my flatmate had messaged me, she suggested I see a doctor for this supposed odor problem. I took the accusation very politely, despite feeling pretty anxious and embarrassed. Didn't get mad at her, etc., but for complete reassurance, I got checked out by both a doctor and a nurse. Both confirmed I was 100% fine and had no body odors anywhere. I replied to my flatmate all this, that it's been confirmed there's no odor issue. I said it's very puzzling what she could be smelling and suggested that COVID may have affected her sense of smell, so maybe she should see a doctor about that. I didn't see her for a few days after, but when she got back, I said hell, and she dashed over to me and said rapidly and angrily, no hello. So what am I meant to tell the doctor? And I was taken aback and said, sorry, what? She snapped aggressively. What am I meant to tell the doctor? You said I needed to see a doctor about my nose. I was completely surprised, so I just kind of shrugged and said, I don't know. Loudly, angrily, she snapped. Well, you said I needed to see someone about my nose. I can't believe you said that. That's so rude. I can't believe you said that. That's a horrible thing to say. I'm so mad at you right now. She stormed away and slammed the door. She accused me of stinking, and I've established I don't. Hence, my genuine thought that COVID may have affected her sense of smell. And her response is to get really mad that I dare to suggest her nose is the issue. So Reddit, AITA here? NTA, wow. It's laughable she got mad at you for suggesting she see a doctor when she did the same thing to you. What you suggested could be true. She may have developed parosmia. After having the virus, it's a thing that happens to some and makes things smell foul. She sounds overly dramatic, but I would stand your ground on this one, and hopefully the other flatmate has your back and can confirm they don't smell anything bad from you. NTA and sinus issues can cause bad smells. I have had bad sinus infections that cause me to smell bad things. Not all the time, but especially at certain times of day. One time, my chronic sinusitis developed fungus, and when it would drain, I would smell the most horrible metallic gag-worthy smell. Ugh. Also, a bad tooth or her own gingivitis. Or she could have a sensitivity to some chemical and her nose could interpret it as bad. All kinds of reasons she could be smelling something bad that is from her own body in unexpected ways. Also, you did so much to prove that you weren't stinky that surely she isn't still going to try to say it's you. And it's so ridiculous that she insulted you so bad and then gets offended at your comment? Loony. My wife is one of the smartest, quickest people I've ever met. She seems to know everything and is a really good conversationalist, which I am definitely not. But she always complains she's unlikely fat. And she dislikes being at any event where there are too many men or even being in a small group of most guys. I know she's absolutely gorgeous, and I've personally never seen anyone treat her any different, but I've always been thin, so maybe I wouldn't notice what she's talking about. But I have noticed recently that she's been more comfortable coming with me to work events and hanging out with my brothers and cousins, and I've noticed they've started to like her a lot. We were at my sister's engagement party when I heard her get into a light-hearted argument with my brother about some celebrity name or fact, and she was proven correct when he Googled it. Later in the evening, I was surprised to see them in a very similar kind of light-hearted argument because they usually don't talk that much. About a TV show or author or something that I know she knows a lot about, but when she pulled out her phone to Google to answer, she was wrong. I thought this was super weird and asked her about it in the car on the way home. She told me that her new strategy is if she ever proves someone wrong, she'll purposefully construct another scenario in which she can be the one proven wrong so that there won't be any hurt feelings. I told her this was ridiculous and no one takes those kinds of things seriously. And if anyone were to somehow catch her doing this, like it did, they would be offended or hurt. She got really pissed and told me that how she manages social situations is her decision and that I wouldn't understand having to play dumb for guys. But when I said that my sister's new fiance was a really smart woman in STEM and never seemed to dumb herself down for guys and everyone really loved her, my wife said that she could get away with that because she was conventionally beautiful and easily accepted. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said I thought she was being overly manipulative and insecure. She was really quiet the rest of the car ride home and then immediately went upstairs and started writing in her journal. I'm worried I really messed up and hurt her feelings, but also I do still think it's a dumb and manipulative thing to do. YTA, manipulative, was very much a bad term to use. She's so deeply insecure and so willing to put herself down for other people that she's going out of her way to make herself look wrong just to avoid the chance of hurting their ego. You should be concerned for her emotional, mental state. You should be trying to build up her self-esteem. Instead, you accused her of doing something wrong and calling her out for being insecure, as if it's something for her to feel guilty and ashamed about, as if she doesn't already feel shame and guilt. She's basically saying, I give up everything to prioritize other people's feelings and ego over my own because I feel like I don't deserve it. And instead, you responded with, actually, you didn't prioritize other people's feelings well enough because manipulation is bad. You're reinforcing that her wants and needs matter less than anyone else's, and that's the last thing she needs right now. While many smart women don't play dumb, a lot of them have faced pretty bad social consequences for not doing so. I don't think she should do it, and I don't think she needs to, but you shouldn't be dismissive of the internal and external pressures that are pushing her to do that. I think your girlfriend is insecure enough that she should seek out therapy. You should be extremely gentle if you recommend this, though. She sounds like a really cool person, and she deserves to feel like she doesn't have to minimize and apologize for herself and her presence in social events. I think you need to work on being more mindful about your girlfriend's feelings and more thoughtful in how you talk about subjects that are sensitive for her. YTA, rather than trying to understand your wife's perspective, you attacked her character. What exactly is she trying to manipulate them to do? Not dislike her?